How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. It's so nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. Where are you? You're on the West Coast?
Yes, I'm in Portland, Oregon.
Oh, nice.
Well,
Nice.
actually Vancouver, but yeah, Portland, Oregon. And where are you?
Dallas, Texas area.
Oh, so it's nice and sunny down there.
Yes, it is. It's
That's
very
a
nice.
nice place to live. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much for being my guest today. And I'm so excited to meet you and chat with you.
Awesome.
I just want to introduce you. Mary is an author of over 30 books. Yes?
Yes.
Wow, that's impressive. She has been married for 25 years, has 3 adult children, and Mary loves Jesus. And she likes to help people restore their lives and let go of the past and live into God's story for them. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, yeah. So I've been writing for a really long time, since the early 1990s. So I've been doing that, but really have been published since the mid 2000s, and started off with a branding statement that was turning trials to triumph. And it didn't really fit. So as I continued to work through that, I was for a long time live uncaged, which made more sense because it connoted the freedom that I wanted to share with readers and listeners. And then that felt like it didn't fit anymore. And so then came Restory, which has been this idea of you're transformed for a purpose. So yes, you're uncaged. Yes, you've been set free, but what's the why to that? And in that why, then we can go out into the world and bring our stories to other people and set them free as well.
Yeah. And I think that's your purpose, right? To let your story unfold and allow other people to kind of come into your story and restore their own lives.
Exactly, yes.
And yours is a springboard. And you guys have had a lot of different experiences in your life, living overseas and planning a church and just kind of a busy lady.
Kinda, yeah. I'm writing books, I'm speaking, I'm training writers as well. So yeah, it's a busy life. And yes, we planted a church in France, which was in the mid 2000s, and that was hard and good and amazing, and gave our children the chance to learn French and to become fluent and to go into French schools. And so yeah, we've had an adventure, definitely. Now we're back in the US of A, which is nice too. Everyone speaks English here, which is nice. And
you guys speak French too?
Yes, I do speak some French. Yeah,
Okay.
I can't share my heart in French, but I can definitely make my way around Paris and order great food. So
That's good. Ordering great food is really important.
it's really all there is. That's all you really need to know.
Right. That's what we have here in the Pacific Northwest. Lots of really good food.
Yes, you do. You
Rain.
do. Lots of good fish and rain. Yes.
Yes. Good food and rain. So you kind of came around to the Restory idea, kind of just working through some things that didn't work for you. Yes.
Right. Yes. Yes. It was a long process. And when I bring authors through the branding process, I share that whole story with them, because it's important to know that you can also evolve. I think sometimes we think, okay, well, this is me forever and eternity, and that's going to always, these few words are going to always represent me, but we change and we grow. And so I like to encourage people to just really be willing to change and have their branding change with their message and with their lives.
So how do you help authors publish? What do you do to help them? Because it sounds to me like you might take them on a journey, a growth journey, not just a publishing, but like on a personal journey as well.
Yeah, so I've this year just launched something called a book mentoring intensive, and we had our first one here in the States at the beginning of February, and that was 12 people, and we went on a journey of basically me imparting to them everything I know about publishing, writing, promotion, editing, launching a book, marketing, all the things that come along with being an author. But really what it is discipleship and training people how to approach this industry with an open heart and to be wise as they pursue that. And so part of that is, walking through branding exercises and helping people figure out who they really are. So that's been really great. That actually started in Geneva. I was invited to do a writer's intensive 2 years ago in Geneva, and just was a great experience, and then did it again last year. And a couple of my American friends were like, why don't you do this in the US? And I thought, well, I guess I could do that in the US. So I'm doing 4 of them this year. Just finished one. We'll do one in May, one in July, and one in November. And it basically just helps people to, if they've ever wanted to write a book and they're finally like at that place where they're finally going to do it, I help them kind of, basically I just push them over the edge and kick them in the butt. So that's what that's all about.
So you're doing one in May and July and November. Did everyone hear that? She's doing 3 this year. And
that's crazy.
It's an opportunity if you want to be a book writer and author to join her on her journey and let her help you. She's published over 30 books. Did I mention that? That's a lot of writing. How do you find time to do that?
I don't know. It's crazy. Well, they can, if they want to find out more about it, it's at booklaunchmentor.com.
Okay.
And in terms of, that's a good question that you asked, because that's one of the things that I talk about in the intensive. And I also share about on that website. I help authors and I help everyone with productivity and creating time and space for the important things. I think part of the problem that all of us have, and especially artists, we have a hard time figuring out and tethering out what is important, what's not important, and where should we spend our time and where shouldn't we spend our time. Yeah. And so part of burnout comes from anyone in any industry is when they start doing so many things that do not pay off, and that can be very demotivating. Mm-hmm. And so to learn what those things are that pay off, and then also to create some time management skills in the midst of that has been, I think, pretty helpful. In fact, some of the feedback I got from the first intensive was that they were so grateful to understand how to schedule their time and how to plot their lives according to what's a priority and what's not a priority.
Mm-hmm. So you've learned how to do that probably by trial and error over the last 20, 30 years, right?
Yeah. In fact, when I first started writing in the 90s, I wasn't published or anything. And so I was doing the Malcolm Gladwell outliers formula of 10,000 hours of unpaid work and internship. And so I would create deadlines for myself, arbitrary deadlines. Like I would say, okay, next Tuesday at 4, I have to have an article written. And so I just began to train myself to meet things early. So now whenever I have a book due with a publisher, I always get that book to them first and early. I've never handed a book in on time. I've always handed them in early. And that's really rare actually in this industry. Yeah. So it makes you stand out and it makes publishers like you, which makes me happy because if I'm liked, I'll get more books published. So that's my job. So that's good.
Keep your job going and keep the flow going. Are you working on any project right now? Any writing project right now?
I am. I'm working on a memoir about trauma, and that's kind of out of my comfort zone. But I'm doing some research on what is trauma and how do you heal from trauma, and then just kind of talking through some of my own trauma. So.
Okay, yeah, that's my specialty, trauma.
Oh, good. Well, then I'll be consulting you soon on what to do.
Yeah, a lot of years in the trauma field and trained in all kinds of different trauma therapies, and that's kind of what I've been doing. And kind of switching courses here, trauma can get you a lot of burnout, probably like in writing and, kind of doing the same thing over and over again. And a lot of taking care of yourself, right? How did you take care of yourself when you're writing? You've got kids. I can just imagine you're a church planner, you're writing, you've got kids, you've just got a lot of balls up in the air. How did you do all of that? How did you juggle and manage and balance your time?
Well, I failed a lot. I mean, I don't want to give the impression that I was really perfect at it because I wasn't, but and I burned out a few times. So that's part of it too. I have found that creating habits has been really helpful for me, though, sometimes life can just hit you in the side the head and your habits will fall away and then you feel guilty about not doing your habits. And so that is not a panacea for everything. But I think underneath it all is this desire to have a healthy life. And I know that I'm happiest and healthiest if I'm exercising, if I'm eating right, if I have quiet space in my life to contemplate when I'm outside. And so if I'm doing self-care, those things will have to be part of my life. And I think one of the things I did well with the kids and with my husband and with our lives is that we always had family mealtime as an extremely high priority.
So important.
We always eat dinner together every night. And that's not something that's changed. We were never the family that went, running around all the time to a bunch of sports, and we just always came back home. And not to say that it's wrong to have sports, it's just the decision that we had. And I think that was probably, if I could point to one of my better parenting moments, it's just that I feed people and love them well with food every night. And that's been great. And that kind of gives you a holy rhythm to your day, because then, once 5, 6 o'clock runs around, then you have to definitely, take care of it. And there's food on the table, and I like to cook. So that's actually a creative outlet for me. So it's not for some people that's a burden, and that would not give them joy. It actually gives me joy. So I enjoy doing that.
That's nice. I also am an eating disorder specialist. So as I'm hearing you talk, I'm like, yay, go Mary. 75% of people who have eating disorders did not have family mealtime. So family mealtime.
Oh my goodness. I did not know that statistic.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. It's a really important rhythm in life, just to have that.
Yeah.
Good job.
Thanks.
I bet your kids don't have eating disorders.
I hope not.
So you've gone through a lot of difficult times. How did you work to keep your marriage strong and your kids healthy? It sounds like family meal times was one of them. Mm-hmm. But I just know what it's like to have kids and grow them and nurture them and take care of our husbands and do all the things that Jesus calls us to do. How did you manage that? Were there seasons where you were more busy? Did it work seasonally? What did you manage just personally for your life?
Yeah. So I think
you also run a lot, right?
Too. I'm a little injured right now.
Triathlete, right?
I'm trying to be. Yes. Yes. If my legs will cooperate. But I think one of the things that is unfortunate today is that, especially in the space that I'm in, so as a writer, during the 90s, there was no such thing as a blog. And so if I wanted to write, it was not very public. And there was no real way for me to make money online during the 90s. But now you see a lot of moms who are bloggers, and they have little bitty kids, and their whole lives are out there for everyone to see. And I consider myself lucky that I didn't have that, because there's a lot of pressure that comes from living your life in front of the screen like that. And so when my kids were super young, I didn't have that. I was just hanging out with them and loving them. And we were blessed that it wasn't easy, and we didn't have a lot of money, but I was able to stay home full time and take care of the kids, which I know is a luxury, and I'm very grateful for it. And I know that some people can't do that. And so, but that was our decision, and we mucked our way through it. And so to answer your question, during those years, there wasn't really a matter of balance, because it was just me as a mom with my kids, and there was no like, oh, I have to go write a blog, or, no one knew what we were doing, and it was very quiet. But as things got more crazy, when my kids were getting older and we were planting a church and we were going overseas and all those things, again, it was more about creating rhythm and to not give in to the societal pressure that you must be busy 24/7. We just refused to believe that was a good thing for our family. And so we chose not to. And I think part of that, being in France, was really a blessing, because the French love to enjoy their food. And there are natural rhythm breaks during the day. Our kids would have like 3-course lunches at their school. So their cheese course, and they had rabbit for lunch and all sorts of things. Like, it was just so funny. So they learned how to slow down and do that. And then, we did that as well. There's not a lot of fast food options there. Of course, they have McDonald's, but it just caused us to realize that America is a little crazy in their pursuit of doing too many things. Mm-hmm. And so it slowed us down as a family when our kids were in those elementary to junior high years. And I think we pulled that back with us when we came back to the U.S. So I think that was helpful.
So a slower pace.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we just were not the family that was doing 1,000 things. I mean, maybe I'm just weak, and that's probably true, but I knew my capacity was not to do that. And so I needed to, for my own sake, kind of put down the law a little bit. And our kids were involved in things, definitely. It's not that they weren't, but, that kind of happened once they started getting their driver's licenses and they could drive themselves to places. So it wasn't, mom in the minivan taking them, dragging them to dance, into the soccer, into this, into that, into this. We let them do one thing at a time. So it made things pretty easy in that sense.
Mm-hmm. So as you think about trauma, and I just appreciate your place for rest and that soul restoration within the rhythm of your life and with your kids. I kind of did the same thing with my kids, and it just creates space. You know, I think some of the younger moms out there, y'all need space in your lives to just be and to be a family, and so important. But as you think about trauma and going into writing a book on trauma, what prompted your heart and soul to venture into that realm?
Craziness probably, but I actually had a situation where I went back to the Pacific Northwest this last winter during Christmas break, and visited the place of where my violation, where I was raped for a year when I was 5 years old. And I had not been back to that place since I was 5. And what's weird is I grew up in Seattle and lived there till my 30s. So I had plenty of opportunity to go back there, but I know I was not ready. And so I went to those places with my husband, and we prayed and we kind of worked through it. But it was, I thought that I was okay while we were doing it, but I was not okay. And so now I'm still kind of, teasing out the trauma of that event, and started writing about it, and trying to figure out what kind of vehicle I should create for that. I could just have it be straight memoir, which I've done before, and would be valuable in its own right. My literary agent is interested in having me weave in information about trauma, so that if a trauma victim picked it up, they'll be like, oh, that's what's going on with me, like all the other things that are going on, and the physiology of all of that. But it would also be a benefit to someone, like a pastor, because when a trauma victim comes into their office, it's not good enough to just throw Bible verses at them, because trauma, there's a very specific way, and as we know about the human brain and what trauma does to us, and people with PTSD and all that kind of stuff, there are some really great therapies out there that can help. And a pastor will be out of his element to try to fix that with a Band-Aid when they need major surgery. So I'm thinking about that. I'm trying to pray about whether, what kind of vehicle this book would be. So again, I'm not an expert, other than I am a trauma victim, and I've had to walk through a lot of healing. And so, and I've come through pretty unscathed on the other side, but it was years of not being unscathed. So
yeah. That's true as for most trauma victims. And pastors, I hope you really heard Mary speak to the fact that when it comes to trauma, you are out of your element. There are tons and tons of trauma therapies that some really great Christian therapists know, and so refer them on. It's a whole brain and body and emotional. Trauma encompasses every single cell of our being. So yeah. And
I think more and more, the longer we live on this earth, the more trauma there is. And so a lot of people actually are, in one degree or another, a victim of some sort of trauma at some time in their life. And so the more we know about it, and the more we understand it, and the more empathy we have, like I appreciated what Dr. Daniel Amen has been doing, because he has, shown us through images that the brain can be hurt and it also can heal. But it helps us to have empathy for people that have been smacked around with a brain injury. They fell down and hurt themselves one time, and it affected them for the rest of their lives. And we're so quick to judge people who act out in a certain way without realizing that there can be a lot more empathy out there. So I'm just really grateful for all the research that's being done on trauma and head trauma as well. It's been really helpful.
Yeah, really helpful. And your book will be super helpful as you give that personal story. What a brave thing to do, to go back into that place of real darkness, right? And hard.
Oh, yeah.
You walk so in there, and good for you for taking your husband, and now you're going to write about it. You're just brave.
Well, will it surprise you to know, as a trauma therapist, that I was like taking pictures and smiling, and we were praying, and I have all these pictures of me in front of all these trauma places. 3 hours later, I was hugging a toilet and utterly, completely sick for 12 hours straight. Yeah. And I thought it was so bad, I thought I would have to go to the hospital. It was like everything was coming out. And at the time I was like, oh, I must have food poisoning. Duh. And I realized it was just a 3-hour delay from the trauma of going back there. It was very traumatic for me. And I expected it would be hard, but I did not expect I would throw up afterwards. So
that's a common reaction.
It was,
wow. Yeah, that was brave work. Wow. Most people wouldn't do that, Mary. Good job.
Yeah, it was hard.
Yeah, really hard. Really hard. Wow. And so how long ago? That was just recently.
Yeah, just a few months ago.
Okay.
Yeah, like 2 months ago.
Wow. Oh, so you're kind of coming out of that and kind of processing all of that and trying to put it in its proper place, right?
I am. I'm trying to find a place for it in my mind, and writing about it does help. So whether this becomes a book or not, I think it's just going to be good therapy for me to write it down.
Yeah. Well, I hope you do write it down, and I hope that you get it written. I think more needs to be written on trauma, especially from the perspective of weaving in a story and then some of the, therapies and what you can do to heal and using some of Daniel Amen's stuff. And I think that'd be great. I'm for it. Go for it, girl.
Yeah. All right, good. That's a good sign. I've been praying like, what do I do, Lord? I don't know. So, yeah.
Well, the funny thing is he knows all about trauma. He knows every single thing that happens to our brain and our bodies, and he understands it, and he gives us more and more insight. But I think sometimes when I was working with trauma victims, I'd be so fascinating to think the Lord's perspective on this. He knows everything about this.
Yeah, I mean, going to the cross would be very traumatic.
Yes.
I mean, can't you even imagine? I can't. So it's definitely, if he didn't have PTSD, he would have. So.
Yeah. So, Jesus actually lived through a lot of traumatic things.
Yes.
So tell me a little bit about how your message about living in the past is not really helpful. You say it in a certain way. I wrote it down somewhere. Living in retrospect is just not helpful. Yeah. Talk a little bit about how that's not helpful. Tell our audience a little bit about living in retrospect and why not to.
Yeah, well, I will say this first, is that one of the things I say when I speak to audiences is that an untold story never heals.
Yes.
So there is a period of time where you definitely have to, if it's never been let out, you need to let it out. And you need to let it out with extremely safe people. So you need to have a little bit of a guard up about, don't just share it with random people on the street. You need to make sure you're sharing it. But once you get past that and you've shared it and people have prayed for you and maybe you've gotten counseling and all of that, eventually I have found in my own life that I have let victimhood be my security blanket, and it was my easy place. So much so that when good things happened to me, I would panic because I did not know how to live with good things happening to me. I would actively wait for the shoe to drop because I was not expecting to find joy. And one time the Lord said to me, you seem to be okay with pain and suffering, but can you handle my joy? I was like, oh, wow. Yeah, that's big. Wow. Okay, that's a deep thought. Okay, yeah, you can handle pain, but you can't handle joy. And so I've been kind of on a crusade, a personal, introspective crusade for myself of, what does it look like not to live in retrospect, and that I'm not defined by these things anymore, and to draw a line in the sand. And I think part of that is a spiritual warfare. We just need to just say no more and get the healing that we need. But then from that point on, that's why I have the idea of restory, is I am restoried so that I can be a part of expanding the kingdom of God. So my story will have a so what. And so it never will go away. I'm always going to have that story. I always will be restoried and continually restored in the sanctification process. But the so what is, okay, yeah, this happened. Yes, it was bad. Yes, God's bringing healing to me. But now how can I be an ambassador of my story to help other people? So that's just been my heart. I mean, I got an email today from a person who was just deeply struggling. And I'm not a counselor at all, but I found it a privilege to be able to point her to some resources and to help her. And that's part of ministry, and that's part of building the kingdom. And it gives me it gives the victim a huge amount of joy to know that it wasn't for nothing.
Yes, that there is a purpose.
Yeah.
I love what you said about living in victimhood. It's so easy to live there. And for trauma victims, it's what we know. I'm a trauma victim as well. And it's what we know, and we can so easily live there. But that's not God's best for us. That is not where he wants to keep us. He wants us to live into his joy. It's also very, very normal for trauma victims to live in a place where they can't really take in joy. It too is an emotion that's too strong or too overwhelming. And so for God to teach us to be able to take that in, for him to speak so directly to you, isn't that just an awesome picture of his tenderness and his love and his just knowing you as an individual personally? He says, Mary, I want you to receive my joy. I just love that. That's awesome.
Yeah. Yes, that's good. I'm so grateful and so thankful that I was rescued, and I will be grateful to Jesus for the rest of my life for doing that.
Yes. So grateful. He's done a lot of awesome things in your life. You've lived a life of adventure. Yeah,
definitely. I want to continue to do that as well. And no matter how old I get, I just always want to be living that adventure.
Yeah. And a life with Jesus is surely an adventure every single day.
Yes, definitely.
What's been your greatest adventure with Jesus? And then I'll let you go, but tell us, if you had to pick one thing, what would be your this is what?
I think it's just simple. It's just trusting him with my family and as a mom and a wife. It seems smaller than some great big adventure, but that to me is where the rubber meets the road, is who you are at home, and who you are as a follower of Christ, and what kind of choices that you make every single day. I've had some hard things happen recently, and within a few hours of a pretty traumatic event happening to me, I was in front of a group teaching, and one of the people knew what was going on, and she came up to me later and she said, I would just be in a puddle. I don't know how you did that. And I thought, this is growth for me. In the past, I would have been in a puddle, but now there's a maturity and a wisdom that's happened over the years, thanks to the Lord, that current trauma does not need to sideline me, and I can continue to work and to do the things that make God smile in the midst of it. Not that you can't, he smiles on you no matter what, but there's just some sort of joy that comes from maturity and knowing you can persevere in instances where you never thought that you could persevere before in.
It is, and I think part of that comes with age too, right?
Yeah.
That just happens with age.
Yes.
Mary, this has been super fun.
Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I just love getting to know you just a tiny bit. And just for those of you who don't know, I emailed Mary and asked her if she would do an interview. So we have never actually met. And this is our first time talking with each other. And it's fun to meet people and know how much we have in common and how similar our lives actually are. Just thank you so much. Thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for being willing to be interviewed and put your story out there and help so many people. I know you.
Hey, we just got a puppy, so I'm in that place too.
So thank you so much. Thank you for being my guest. And let's keep in touch.
All right. Sounds good. Appreciate it.
I would love to, if you have any questions about trauma, then I worked with severe trauma. I won't put this on my recording because I don't want anyone to know, but I worked with people coming out of satanic ritual abuse.
Oh my. Okay.
Yeah. So I was working with hardcore trauma. I don't say that publicly because I don't need any more death threats or anything like that.
Yeah, exactly.
But so I've worked with really severe trauma over the years, and don't do that anymore. I'm really into kind of creating joy and peace. And okay, Lord, let's move on to some peaceful things. Those were some really hard years. So
yeah. Oh,
but I'm super happy if you ever just want to pick my brain or give me a call or an email and say, hey, Lainey, what's this or that? I'm totally.
Yeah. If you could send me like a resource that is has been the most helpful to you, or maybe that's in layman's terms that is just about trauma and therapies, and that'd be really helpful.
Probably the most helpful therapy, the most helpful for trauma. And you probably
EMDR.
EMDR. Yeah, I'm EMDR certified.
Yeah. I need to do that because I keep recommending it to people, and I've read so much about it, and I actually just
haven't done it.
No, I've talked to some counselors in my area and said, I just need to go in and do it because I don't want to recommend to people something I haven't done, but all my psychiatrists and psychologist friends have said it's great. And they're Christ followers and everything. And I think it's definitely important to do. I just need to do it so that I can say that I've done it. But
yeah. And where you're at in your maturity and just being able to talk about your story, the way that you can talk about it, you'd probably be good with 1 or 2 sessions.
Yeah, I figured a good tune-up would be.
And it would just be over and you'd be, And you'd experience, it's cool. It's a cool experience because you're in it and you participate, but then you also are working at the same time. Your brain is doing probably 4 or 5 things at once, which is why it works. Mm-hmm. And you're putting in that positive message into your brain. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. I've heard great things.
Yeah, you should do it.
I know, I should. I probably have to if I'm going to write this book. So definitely.
So I would say that's the one biggest piece to trauma is the EMDR. Mm-hmm. But like you said, being able to talk about it is huge. What happens is there's a little piece of our brain called the Broca's part of our brain and the left part of our brain that shuts down with trauma. Yeah. So it protects us really. Mm-hmm. And so to be able to talk about it is huge because then it has to go through there. And that's a frontal cortex thing. Right. So the other thing that I had people do without doing any EMDR, and I could just sit and have someone do it without having to do any kind of technique, is tell the story in as much detail as they possibly can forward, and then tell it in the same amount of detail backwards. Interesting. And then tell it forward again, and then tell it backwards again. And that releases the trauma too, without any kind of fancy
woo-woo. Yeah.
Without any woo-woo. It's just tell it as in as much detail as you can, get through it, and then tell it backwards, and it tricks the brain. So
that's good. I want to try that. That's awesome.
Yeah, you can try it. I have sit down and do it with someone. Tell it to your husband, and then have him listen to you tell it backwards. It's tricky, but it works.
Yeah. So that's like saying the alphabet backwards. Your mind is like, what? Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, but I'm happy to help in any way that I can. Or
perfect.
You doing this. This has been fun.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for including me. And so when does the summit go live or what?
It goes live May 1st to the 21st.
Okay, cool.
So I'm working on gathering all the interviews. And did you want to give away a free gift?
I can. I'm happy to. I have the Not Marked book, which is How to Heal from Sexual Abuse. It's told from my perspective. And the interesting thing about that book is that Patrick, my husband, writes in it as well. And so it is not only for the victim, but it's for the spouse or the friend of the victim. And so he's not a victim, but he tells his story of walking me through healing and what he did well and what he didn't do well. And so it's kind of a nice resource for either a victim or a friend of a victim.
That would be great. If you could send me the link to it and the title of it, and then I'll add it on here.
Okay.
You'll need your links so that people can opt in and do all that, but yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yay. Thank you very much. Thanks for your time. And I hope I get to meet you. If you come out to the Pacific Northwest, look me up.
I am going to come in June. I think I'm coming to Portland.
So you are?
I am.
Coffee.
We should. Because I'm going to be meeting with my agent.